So picture this. You've got a car, right? Found abandoned right on the Pacific Coast Highway.
Mm-hmm.
The keys are literally in the ignition, turned to the on position, doors are completely unlocked, battery's dead, and sitting right there on the front seat is a young woman's laptop, two cell phones, her backpack, her makeup, and like $37 in cash.
Which is just, I mean, an immediate red flag.
Exactly. And look, if this is 1990, we're looking at a total black hole of a case. But it's the early morning hours of January 28th, 2017. A 20-year-old aspiring actress named Elaine Park walks out of a house in a gated community in Calabasas.
Right. And in 2017, we have, GPS, cell tower pings, Apple location sharing, security cameras on literally every corner.
Yeah, we should know exactly what happened to her. So why does every single piece of quote-unquote objective data, in this case, point in a completely different direction? Welcome to the deep dive.
Thanks for having me. And yeah, we are looking at a modern mystery today that really exposes the cracks in our digital safety nets.
So our mission today, right, for you listening, is to really look at where objective data actually lies to us. Like how institutional systems can completely fail and what happens when internet sleuths step into that void.
Because it can get really messy.
Oh, incredibly messy. Because if you look at the digital footprints here, it's honestly like looking into a funhouse mirror.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
You take a kernel of truth, a phone pinging a tower, a camera catching a shadow, and it gets stretched so far out of proportion that you think you're looking at Elaine's exact path, but really you're just looking at a distorted illusion.
Well, let's look at the actual timeline of that morning. According to her ex-boyfriend, Divine, who is the last confirmed person to see her, Elaine woke up around 4 SAR a.m. having a really severe panic attack.
Okay.
He states she was shaking, singing softly to herself, and despite his attempts to get her to stay, she just walked out.
Which is scary on its own.
It is. Now, we actually have CCTV footage capturing her walking toward her 2015 Honda Civic at exactly 6:05 a.m. But here's the thing. The timestamp burned right into that very same video file says 9:05 a.m.
Okay, let's unpack this because that is a massive discrepancy.
Yeah.
And then a neighborhood gate camera catches a car that looks exactly like hers leaving the complex, but the timestamp on that footage says 7:02 a.m.
Right.
So if you have a physical departure at 6:05, a camera literally saying 9:05, and gate saying 7.1. Why would modern security systems just be off by these arbitrary amounts of hours and minutes?
What's fascinating here is it all comes down to how digital video recorders or DVRs maintain their internal clocks. Yeah, ideally, a modern system is connected to the internet and constantly syncs with an atomic clock, right? In network time protocol server.
Like our phones do.
Exactly. But many residential systems aren't networked that way. If the house loses power, the internal CMOS battery on the motherboard takes over. And when that tiny battery dies, the system clock drifts. Or worse, it just reverts to its factory default settings.
Oh, wow.
And since a lot of these systems are manufactured on the East Coast, they default to Eastern Standard Time. So that perfectly explains the 3-hour discrepancy, giving us 9:05 a.m. instead of 6:05 a.m.
Okay, so that completely accounts for the 3 hours. But what about the gate camera saying 7:14 a.m.? I mean, you can blame daylight savings for an hour of that shift, but where do the extra 14 minutes come from?
So that's the clock drift I mentioned. The slow death of an internal battery causes localized clock drift over time.
Yeah.
A system might lose, say, 2 minutes a month for 3 years, leaving you with a timestamp that is just completely random off by an hour, 7 minutes, and 14 seconds.
That is wild.
And unless law enforcement immediately seizes the DVR and calibrates its current displayed time against the actual true time right then and there, the data just becomes mathematically useless.
Which is so frustrating.
Yeah.
And the phone data is just as chaotic, right? Because at 6:02 and 8 a.m., her phone registers an Apple Find My Friend's location share with Divine. Later that morning at 8:51 a.m., her phone receives 3 rapid-fire text messages from her mother demanding a $20 loan be repaid. And then finally, her phone pings a Malibu cell tower for the last time at 3:42 p.m.
Right, the final ping.
But my pushback on this data being the ultimate truth is that none of it, literally none of it, proves who is actually holding the device.
Oh, exactly. And a cell tower ping is frequently misunderstood by the public anyway. A ping is simply a digital handshake.
Right.
The cell phone sends out a radio frequency probing for the strongest signal, and the tower acknowledges it. That does not mean Elaine is standing next to the tower.
Like she's not leaning up against the pole?
No, not at all. Especially in a geographical area like Malibu, you have to remember it's sandwiched right between the Santa Monica Mountains and the Pacific Ocean.
Right, lots of canyons.
Exactly. So cell signals bounce erratically off the terrain. A ping only gives investigators a wedge-shaped sector that can stretch for several miles. It confirms the phone was powered on somewhere within that massive radius at 3:42 p.m., but it tells us absolutely nothing about who possessed it.
Wait, I want to go back to the CCTV footage of Elaine leaving Divine's house for a second.
Sure.
Because the sources from the Among the Missing podcast point out something that completely broke how I thought security cameras worked.
The cutoff.
Yes. The clip of Elaine leaving the house cuts off exactly 18 seconds after she walks out the door. It just stops. I mean, security systems usually record in continuous loops, or at least, motion-triggered blocks that last for a few minutes.
Right.
Why would it clip perfectly in the middle of the action? Is that like a system glitch, or is it human tampering?
It's highly suspicious. A hard cut at exactly 18 seconds is a severe technical anomaly because motion-triggered cameras utilize what is called a pre-record and post-record buffer.
Okay, what does that mean?
So that the software is designed to save the 5 to 10 seconds of video before the motion sensor is actually tripped, right? And then it's programmed to keep recording for at least 30 to 60 seconds after the motion stops.
To get the whole event.
Specifically to capture the full context, yes. We should have a very generous buffer of her actions.
So we should have seen her walk to the car, unlock it, actually get in, turn on the headlights, and drive away.
We should have all of that. But instead, there is zero buffer. There is no footage of her actually getting into the car. There is no footage of her driving away. It just leaves this massive, glaring blind spot right at the critical moment she vanishes from the known world.
That is so unsettling.
And it gets worse. The original DVR system was allegedly wiped clean shortly after that specific 18-second extraction was made.
Oh, come on. So the original data is just gone.
Gone.
So if the digital data is a dead end and the cameras mysteriously cut out right when we need them most, human nature abhors a vacuum.
It really does.
When people don't have hard facts, they just build narratives. And the sources reveal two incredibly intense competing narratives of guilt, focusing on the two people standing closest to that vacuum.
Her ex-boyfriend and her mother.
Exactly. Divine and Susan. Let's look at Divine first.
Let's do it. As the last confirmed person to see her alive, statistical probability obviously places heavy scrutiny on him. That's just how investigations work.
Right.
Podcast transcripts from these sources analyze his only major interview, and they note a shifting timeline regarding when they actually fell asleep that night. But linguistically, what they really focus on is his defensively scripted language.
Yeah, he catches himself multiple times in the transcripts. He says, quote, "She pretty much left. No, she left. That was literally the last time I saw her."
It sounds rehearsed.
It really does. Like he's navigating this minefield of ambiguous language. And then there's the phone activity, which is super weird. After 1:34 p.m. that day, Divine never sends her another text message.
Right. He makes a few calls, but no texts.
Yeah, he calls a couple of times over the next day, but never texts. I mean, if someone leaves your house in the middle of a severe panic attack, wouldn't you be texting them constantly just to ask if they got home safe?
You would think so. And the cessation of text messaging is absolutely a behavioral marker that investigators look for.
Because it implies guilt.
Well, people often stop texting a phone when they know the person on the other end can no longer read it.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. However, we have to remember that behavioral markers are not physical evidence.
Right. Okay, so let's flip the narrative over to the mother, Susan.
Yeah.
Because here's where it gets really interesting.
It gets very dark.
The Reddit sleuths and the deep dive timelines pull up the history of a highly toxic, abusive relationship between Elaine and Susan. We're talking about texts where Susan literally types the word die with like a dozen exclamation points to her own daughter.
An insurance fraud dispute, yeah.
Yes. And the morning Elaine vanished, Susan sends those 3 texts in rapid succession. Now, $20. Now, just demanding $20. But the internet sleuths go much further than just toxic text messages. The sources detail how cadaver dogs were brought into Susan's home, and they actually alerted to the scent of human decomposition right outside Elaine's bedroom door, at the foot of her bed, and in a closet.
So let's break down the chemistry of a cadaver dog alert here, because it is highly, highly contentious in this case.
Yeah, please do.
Cadaver dogs are trained to detect specific volatile organic compounds, primarily putrescine and cadaverine.
Okay.
These are released during the breakdown of human tissue. And the dogs possess up to 300 million olfactory receptors, making them incredibly, incredibly sensitive.
But wait, if a dog alerts, doesn't that just mean a dead body was definitely in that room?
Not necessarily, and that is the fundamental misunderstanding of forensic canine alerts that happens online all the time.
Oh, really?
Yeah, those same compounds, putrescine and cadaverine, can linger from other biological materials.
Like what?
A discarded baby tooth, a bloody nose that dripped on a carpet years ago. Even certain types of soil bacteria can produce the exact same volatile organic compounds.
So it's not a guarantee.
Far from it. A dog's alert is an investigative tool indicating the potential presence of biological material. Without corroborating physical evidence, like blood spatter, DNA, or bodily fluids, an alert is scientifically meaningless in a courtroom.
Okay, but even if we completely discount the dogs, there's the mystery car seen on the security footage.
Right, the Volvo.
Yeah. A car was captured slowly circling Divine's cul-de-sac while Elaine was out at her car the night before she vanished. And Troy Taylor, the host of the Among the Missing podcast, did this whole forensic analysis of that blurry footage. But how do you even identify a car from just a few glowing pixels in the dark?
It's actually really cool. Forensic video analysis relies on geometry rather than image clarity.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, analysts measure the headlight spread, so the exact distance between the two light sources. They measure the wheelbase, and they look at the specific configuration of the taillight illumination pattern.
And they compare that to databases.
Exactly. By comparing those geometric measurements against manufacturer databases, Taylor identified the vehicle as a Volvo S60.
And the kicker is, according to his records, the only person in Elaine's orbit who drove a Volvo S60 was her mother, Susan.
Right.
So you look at Susan, and you see this sinister parent demanding money, sending death wishes via text, and secretly circling the boyfriend's house in the middle of the night. It's so easy to take all these bizarre, uncomfortable facts and just force them into a murder narrative.
But we have to separate behavioral flaws from evidence of murder. That is crucial. Multiple uncomfortable truths can exist simultaneously. Susan can be a deeply flawed parent who makes contradictory statements to the media and has a highly toxic dynamic with her daughter. She can simultaneously be entirely innocent of her daughter's disappearance.
That's a really good point.
And the same logic applies to Divine, right? He can use scripted language and fail to follow up with text messages and still be 100% innocent.
Right. And while the internet is busy pointing fingers at the family and ripping these relationships apart based on circumstantial behavior, a deeply disturbing pattern highlighted by the local Malibu suggests the real story might be a massive institutional failure by local law enforcement.
Yeah, this is where the scope of the case really widens. The local Malibu connects Elaine's case to a broader pattern emerging from the Lost Hills Sheriff's Station. They specifically point to the officer in charge of searches. The same officer worked Elaine's case, as well as the cases of Mitris Richardson in 2009 and Matthew Weaver Jr. in 2018.
And for those who don't know, all three of these young people vanished under highly bizarre circumstances in the exact same geographic area, which locals call Dark Canyon.
Yes, Dark Canyon.
And the pattern is just staggering. In all three cases, this specific officer immediately pushed a quote-unquote suicide narrative. He told the distraught families things like, sometimes people just want to go away and not be found.
Just incredibly dismissive from day one.
Completely. And we usually view the police as the objective referees of a case, right? We trust them to follow the physical evidence. But the premature label of suicide operates like a virus. It structurally alters the police response.
This raises an important question about protocol. When a lead investigator categorizes a disappearance as a likely suicide, the protocol literally changes. The search is administratively classified as a recovery effort only.
Which sounds minor, but it's not.
It's huge. That seemingly minor paperwork distinction has catastrophic consequences. It locks homicide detectives, the personnel explicitly trained to look for foul play out of the investigation entirely.
So what does that physically mean for the evidence? I mean, Elaine's abandoned Honda Civic was found with the keys in the ignition and her laptop right on the seat. If it's a recovery effort, how is that car treated differently than a crime scene?
Basically, chain of custody is essentially abandoned.
Really?
Yeah. If it is not a suspected crime scene, the vehicle is not subjected to rigorous forensic processing.
Wow.
The steering wheel is not swabbed for touch DNA to see who drove it last. The seat position is not measured to determine if someone's significantly taller or shorter than Elaine was behind the wheel. The internal computer is not downloaded for braking and acceleration data.
That is maddening.
And in Elaine's case, her car was just released back to her family.
They just handed the car back. So any potential clues that were in that car are permanently destroyed by civilian contamination.
Completely compromised.
And the sources from the local Malibu go even further, alleging severe professional misconduct. They report that this same officer in charge of searches was making inappropriate and sometimes physical sexual advances toward the distraught family members and friends during the actual search efforts in the canyons.
It's appalling. And it really makes you wonder how many unsolved cold cases are actually the result of a brilliant, untraceable perpetrator versus simply being the result of procedural failures and institutional apathy on day one.
Right, like the killer wasn't a genius, the cops just didn't try.
Exactly. The first 48 hours of a missing persons case dictate the trajectory of the entire investigation. If law enforcement approaches those hours with an initial bias, assuming the victim simply walked into the ocean to end their own life, they permanently cripple the investigation.
Yeah.
They blind the system to potential foul play until the physical evidence has completely degraded.
And when the police drop the ball like that, podcasters and citizen journalists pick it up.
They absolutely do.
But treating real-world tragedy as serialized entertainment comes with severe collateral damage. We see this vividly in a source titled A Podcast That Ruined a Life, which breaks down the fallout from the massive hit podcast to Live and Die in L.A.
Right, hosted by Neil Strauss. And look, he brought a significant amount of overlooked evidence to light, but the structure of the podcast was inherently problematic because it was built using the mechanics of a thriller.
How does that actually play out for the people involved? I mean, if a podcaster finds a piece of evidence, shouldn't they just release it?
Well, serialized storytelling relies on withholding information.
Oh, right.
A podcast might introduce highly incriminating circumstantial evidence about a family member in episode 2, intentionally ending on a cliffhanger to ensure downloads for the next week.
To keep people hooked.
Exactly. And the exonerating or complicating evidence that provides actual context might not be revealed until episode 6.
But the audience is living in real time. So because of that narrative framing, the community completely turned on Susan Park after those early episodes. She was ostracized. She reportedly lost her job. She was subjected to a relentless internet witch hunt where people treated her like a convicted killer.
It's terrifying.
All despite the fact that the police have never named her as a suspect.
It highlights the profound duality of citizen journalism. The sources explicitly contrast this with podcasts like Your Own Backyard, which successfully used investigative journalism to solve the 25-year-old cold case of Kristen Smart.
Right. They actually found witnesses the police missed and brought a killer to justice.
So the medium is a powerful tool for keeping cold cases in the spotlight. It can do real good.
But the flip side is dangerous. And you're listening to this right now, and you clearly value learning about these cases, but this highlights the ethical tightrope of consuming true crime.
It really does.
Internet sleuths are essentially a jury that has been given a massive pile of evidence, but there is no judge in the room to rule out hearsay. There are no rules of evidence. There's no one to instruct the jury to ignore a piece of data because the CCTV timestamp was corrupted by a dead motherboard battery.
Right. When a platform prioritizes engagement, pacing, and narrative drama over strict journalistic integrity, it risks ruining innocent lives in the pursuit of a satisfying ending.
Yeah.
A person vanishes, and the people left behind might be deeply flawed individuals who behave erratically under the immense pressure of trauma. That erratic behavior makes for compelling audio, but it does not equate to murder.
The disappearance of Elaine Park remains this heartbreaking, tangled labyrinth. You have corrupted DVR timestamps, missing CCTV buffer footage, toxic family dynamics, massive institutional failures regarding evidence preservation, and the runaway power of the true crime machine.
It's overwhelming.
Elaine deserves to be found, and her story shouldn't just be a puzzle for us to solve.
It is a sobering reminder that behind every data point and every podcast cliffhanger, there is a very real human cost.
Absolutely. I want to leave you with a final, lingering thought to mull over. Think about the digital footprint you leave behind on just an average Tuesday. The text messages you send in anger that lack tone or context. The random places your phone pings a cell tower while you're just driving down the highway. The security cameras you walk past at the gas station that might be running on a broken internal clock.
That's a lot.
If you were to vanish tomorrow, how easily could a stranger on the internet stitch those fragmented data points together to tell a completely false and terrifying story about who you are and what happened to you?
That's a chilling thought.
We want our data to be clean, like an X-ray showing a broken bone. But in the end, it's just an abandoned car on the side of the highway, doors unlocked, battery dead, and the truth nowhere to be found. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We'll catch you next time.